Hey you guys, welcome to our first food production video demo. As I already told you in the email, I'm gonna make some herb roasted chicken with some rice and vegetables and bechamel sauce. Hopefully by now you've already, by the time you start the video anyway, your chicken is ready by being marinated. If not, go ahead and marinate your chicken for a couple hours in the fridge or overnight, just to make sure that the oils and the juice get in the chicken and it makes it nice and tender. And then go ahead and place your chicken on a baking sheet. I have these really cool silicone mats. You can just use a regular baking sheet with parchment paper or foil, and then put it in the oven at 375 degrees. For my first guess is going to be 30 minutes because of the thickness that I had on the chicken breasts. All right, next up is your rice. Now I cheated a bit and I pre-cooked rice in my rice cooker. I had some really nice wild rice, and now I'm getting my water simmering to steam my broccoli, and that's a steam basket. If you don't have a steam basket, you can steam your broccoli in the microwave with a little bit of water, just covered up in a glass or plastic dish. And then those are the fixings for my sauce, which I'll come back to in a little bit. But that's, my milk, my flour, my butter, my bay leaf, and my seasonings. All right, now that my chicken's in the oven, I'm gonna get my broccoli ready. And the way I'm gonna do that is by taking a knife lengthwise and cutting through the long stems to make them nice and thin. Mostly I'm doing this because I like the stem part, and also because just aesthetically, when I put the broccoli on the plate, it'll look really nice if I have left a little bit of stem on the broccoli, as long as it's not really short and thick. Otherwise, it's not gonna look very nice. If you have long stemmed broccoli, go ahead and, like I said, keep the stem and just kind of go through and make all of these broccoli pieces so that they're nice and uniform. I'm gonna do this for a little while, and I'm just gonna go back to that first part that I already showed you because I know that was pretty fast. Like I said, timing is really important in this sort of recipe. You have to get the longest thing going first. The longest thing was my rice, actually, because wild rice takes a long time to cook. So I started my wild rice well before I even thought about putting my chicken in the oven. You have to take a look at your rice packaging and see how long it's gonna take. Next up is the chicken, because if it's not done, you need to allow yourself some more time to put that back in there if the chicken is not done. And then for this, third up is the broccoli, because that only takes about, 10 to 15 minutes to steam in the steamer. In your microwave, it's probably only gonna take about 5 minutes. So that would probably be one of the last things you did. And then from the broccoli cutting and steaming, I'm gonna go into making the sauce, which I'll explain in just a little bit. At this point, I'm just filling time, but I just wanna say hello to everybody, and I hope that you're doing well. The nice thing about, watching a food video is that you all have to eat. So if you're, able to get the ingredients to make this video, this is a recipe that is super simple, but it's a really nice elevated dish as far as a basic family dinner goes. And to me, the sauce is what makes it. This is something that my whole family, even down to my 7-year-old son, will eat without any, complaints, because it's chicken, rice, veggies, and a really yummy sauce. So I would encourage you to prepare this for yourself, for your family, and obviously you can adjust the recipes as you see fit. All right, now that my broccoli is all ready to go, I'm gonna think about putting it in the steamer basket. So like I said, if you have a steamer basket, you just put that over top of a pan of boiling water, and it's super simple. If you don't have a steamer basket, you could just put that all in the microwave with something that has a lid that fits, and maybe just a little bit of water. Here's my steamer basket. I'm just gonna put the broccoli right in there, and I'm not gonna use any salts or anything until after it's cooked. When you salt vegetables before you steam them, it really gets in the vegetable and they end up almost too salty. So I like to do it afterwards. All right, now I can think about making my sauce. I've got all my components together for my meal, and so I'm gonna put my sauce together. I've got butter, which I'm gonna add first into a saucepan that's at about a medium to a medium high heat. You don't wanna burn your butter, that's really important. If you burn your butter, your sauce will have a really bad taste, and it will be, a not so attractive color. So go ahead and melt your butter, and then once your butter is melted, the next step is to add in your flour. It's 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour, and you might remember that from Basic Foods, you might remember that combination is called a roux, which basically means to thicken. So it's a paste that you have to start with as your base if you want to thicken a liquid in a sauce. So in this recipe, our roux is butter and flour in equal parts, and you just make sure that's really well incorporated. I turned my heat down just a little bit to make sure that I wasn't going to burn my flour. And you want to cook the roux just for a few seconds to make sure you can smell that nice toasty smell of the flour, and that it's not grainy when you add your milk. So making sure the flour is completely bound together with the butter, and you've cooked it so it's no longer that really kind of grainy flour consistency. All right, now it's time to add the bay leaf. Bay leaf is one of those interesting ingredients that you don't really think to add, or you don't really think is going to do much, but it actually provides so much flavor if it's allowed to simmer for a little bit. So that's why we have to add it before we add the liquid, because the liquid is going to kind of bring out some of that flavor of the bay leaf as it cooks. So I'm going to add in my bay leaf and my milk really gradually, stirring constantly the whole time. And then what I'm doing is I'm just going around and making sure that I'm scraping up any little bits off the bottom of the pan that might potentially burn or, not be able to incorporate into the sauce all the way. Now what I'm looking for is the sauce consistency to just get a little bit more solid and viscous, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. I like Himalayan pink salt. I think it has a really good mild salt flavor. And then I'm just stirring over, I would say a medium low heat at this point, just so that I can see that the sauce is starting to change in texture just a little bit. All right, I'm gonna grab a spoon and I'm gonna test to see if the sauce sticks at all to the back of a spoon. That's kind of like my go-to method for seeing if my sauce is, kind of getting to where it needs to be. So I just like a spoon, a metal spoon that you would actually be able to see through and see if it's, sticking to the back of the spoon. All right, as our sauce thickens up, you need to think about how you're going to flavor it. So if we just leave it like this, it's gonna be really bland. It's butter, flour, and milk, and a little bit of bay leaf and salt. So what I like to add is just a little bit of Dijon mustard. And those of you who hate mustard are thinking that's really weird. I don't think you can taste the mustard when this is all said and done. In fact, my children have never said a word to me about thinking that there's mustard in this sauce. So I like to add mustard and Worcestershire sauce. Those are my go-to ingredients. But essentially what you've done is you've created a base for any white sauce. If you wanted to add a little Parmesan cheese and make it take on more of like an Alfredo, then you could do that. But as soon as you season it and it gets to, the thickness that you want, take those bay leaves out. And then what you're gonna wanna do is just stir it up and then turn the heat off and put the lid on. And you're gonna see when I plate that this does have a tendency to form kind of like a skin on the top of it. But again, once it's the thickness that you want, go ahead and take it off the heat, put the lid on, and get ready to plate. All right, now you can see we're getting ready to plate. Everything is how it should be. Our chicken temperature is above 165. Our rice is done and I fluffed it up and added a little bit of butter to it. I stirred off that, kind of that layer that formed on the top of the sauce, and now I'm gonna get ready to plate. I like to add my grain or my starch first. That is the base. It's always the base of what you're doing. And I like to put it directly in the middle of the plate. So I add my rice, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of broccoli right next to that. And the really nice thing about having broccoli in this kind of longer form is it just looks nicer on the plate. All right, now I can think about adding my chicken. And when I add the chicken, I wanna make sure that I'm putting it kind of in the opposite direction as the rice and the broccoli, just to make the plate a little bit more interesting. So kind of spread the rice out underneath the chicken a bit, and then you can get ready to put your sauce on. Now it's up to you where you wanna put your sauce. I like sauce over everything, but that doesn't really look very good on the plate. So I'm gonna try to keep it contained just to the chicken and a little bit drizzled over onto the rice. And then that way, if whoever eats this wants a little bit more on their broccoli or whatever, they'll have some extras on the plate to dip their broccoli into. And here you have it, a fully plated meal that really didn't take that long from start to finish. It looks gorgeous, and I can't wait to serve it to my family. And if you make this, please send me a picture. I would love to see it. See you later.